when I first started doing makeups, playing around with putty and cornstarch and all, latex and everything. All I did was horror movies. That's when I started thinking about, this might be a interesting job to get into if it's possible. I'd never imagined I would get where I am today.
Mark.
I have 2 Academy Awards. I've been very lucky to have won for one Academy Award for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and the other was for Mrs. Doubtfire. My job when I'm brought in on film as a special makeup effects artist is to create and design everything that involves makeup effects.
Idiot, you idiot!
I think Greg is one of the most talented makeup people around. He's one of the 3 or 4. And I thought that, his concept for this was wonderful.
It was quite a challenge on this film just because we did all the work here in my shop in LA, and they were shooting in Camden, Maine. And just to fly to Maine with all the plane transfers and that takes a good 12 hours. I need to be here working in the shop, helping with the designs and making sure everything's going that direction. And I need to be there to make sure everybody's doing the makeup's right and talking with Tom and making sure what's coming up is going to work. So it was incredibly difficult.
They lost 16 pies in transit by air shipping.
On Thinner, just trying to ship everything through Federal Express to get it from here to there the next day to shoot with, it was just an enormous undertaking. The crew we used on Thinner, it was an enormous crew, and I don't think people realize how much work goes into these films, but I had probably 15 to 20 mold makers. There was one person running all the foam, and he had assistants helping him, and he was running foam day and night in the ovens. There were sculptors. We had about 6 really great sculptors who were just sculpting right and left. There's painters who sit down and pre-paint certain makeups before they go out.
Hey, B, you want to come with me? Oh, Christ, stop, Lee.
One thing I learned a long time ago is not to think about the makeup as a makeup and how it's going to work. Otherwise, I'll go nuts. I've learned if I just sit down with the clay, I start seeing things in the clay and it starts happening. And eventually it turns out what it's going to be. When I first read the script, of course I've always wanted to work on a Stephen King novel, and the script was so great.
Do I have to?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well?
$2.97.
Billy, you were $2.97 last week.
Well, it takes some time for these diets to work.
To me, if you didn't believe the fat makeup at the beginning of the film, it didn't matter what else we did in the film. That really worried me a lot. When I do a film and start designing it, I like sculpting the makeup or effect on a real actor's face. You take the head cast, you get the copy of their head, and then you just have to work with their features. The process for doing a makeup on Robert, we'd have Robert sit down and say for the fat makeup, which was one huge slip over the neck piece, we'd slip on him and we'd glue it onto him, and then we'd have to, around the mouth was very tricky, we'd have to sit there and sometimes do it 2 or 3 times, glue it down or unglue it and re-glue it and get it positioned just right. And once you get that down, go around the edges with some special Pax paint that would help blend the edges more into the skin, which would kind of cover the edges a bit on them, kind of spatulate that in, a thick makeup basically. And then we go over with the base makeup, which was a little darker than his skin color. And we'd go over that and just cover everything with that. Once I did that, I would go in with a makeup, a rubber mask grease makeup, that I would lightly blotch on Then I'd go over his forehead with a little of the rubber mask grease makeup just to blend it all together. The first thing I designed was the thinnest makeup on Robert Burke because I needed something to go from backwards. So we designed that first, the thin look, and then went backwards to the fat look and then tried to fill in all in between. We're planning on about 10 to 12 makeups. We had designed about, because of time and everything, about 8 stages of makeup going down. We decided in the design to go with a lot of wrinkles, like the skin would deflate and it would be very, very wrinkly and hanging skin, so that it would not only, we could cheat things on Robert because he has such a strong neck and everything. We could, you know, the optical illusion of hiding things with wrinkles and making him look a lot thinner. And also I thought the wrinkles would be a lot more disturbing. The reason we created a fat suit was for the shower scene. They said they were just going to do a shot like this on him. And I thought, well, you know, for the fun of it, we'll do a down to his bottom of his waist, we'll do a fat suit just in case, because I know they'll probably shoot it. And then when he got under the showers, of course, it being foam latex, it just started absorbing the water. So as they were shooting these scenes time after time, plus he's getting soap and washing his hair and everything, and we're just going, oh, watching, you know, chunks of hair fall out occasionally. And then I realized that the water was soaking in, absorbing it, and it was getting so heavy it was actually pulling down his shoulders and the rest of his body as it was getting heavier with the water, which I thought, well, it works with the film. He's getting thinner and everything's starting to sag and hang. Linda Notaro created about 8 different suits for Robert Burke.
When Greg Cannom first came to me with the script, he wanted me to read through it and let him know how many bodysuits I felt they needed. What made Thinner different and more challenging for me was that in previous movies, like Mrs. Doubtfire, there was only one bodysuit, but in Thinner there were several, and they had to have a gradual change from each suit. So they had to be fairly close together in size, but yet have a smooth transition from the largest to the smallest. We're able to make small variations between the different sizes of suits by adding belly pads, different size belly pads underneath the actual stomach piece that was on the suit. In order to make the bodysuits as comfortable as possible for the actor, I like to make it in 2 pieces. There's a bottom and there's a top. They zip together around the waist so that it can easily be accessible to take either the top off or the bottom off. Also, to keep them cool while they're wearing the suit, we have what's called a cool suit, which is a vest that they wear with tubing running throughout it, and will run cool water through that in between scenes so they can get cooled off.
What we ultimately ended up with were 4 stages, and I'm starting with the largest stage here, which is actually a size 50, a size 50 waist. But this one, we have the ability to add these little belly pieces, okay, which if you put this underneath, which this one does have one, this increased the weight, the waist measurement to a 52. So by adding and taking away these little pieces, we could take 4 stages and end up with 8 or more variances of weight and waist measurements.
To be put into the heavyset bodysuit was tantamount to being wrapped tightly in a very heavy sleeping bag. Again, there was a lot of constriction, but at the same time, it did, you know, by virtue of the weight of the costume, help me in terms of body movements and things like that.
There's a lot of eating sequences that Robert had to go through in Thinner, and of course we were concerned about how well the makeup would hold up because it had to be very flexible. One thing we try to do is to keep the makeup very thin around his mouth so that there would be a lot of flexibility. And for those days that he shoots, we go in and we use some pretty strong adhesives. And we actually even seal the edges with waterproof adhesives so that he would be able to eat a lot.
283. No fooling.
No fooling.
That is 14 pounds in 7 days. Congratulations.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
As Billy grows thinner, his soul grows thinner. So the difficulties were twofold. One is the mechanical task of making him go from 300 pounds to 124. And the other is the working with the actor Bob Burke to get the emotional trajectory of the character as he progresses from being a smug, self-satisfied lawyer to somebody whose mind starts to degenerate as his body degenerates.
Gonna get you for this, Heidi. I swear I am.
We were very lucky in working with Robert Burke. He's just an incredible talent, and he's such a nice guy. And he had been through a lot of heavy makeup effects on one of the RoboCop films, and he never complained once. You know, he was just so great to work with, and that's a real good thing for us to find in somebody, you know, with his talent. The interesting thing about the makeup, and I think it's probably the worst part about wearing the makeup, is after 10 or 12 hours it starts itching underneath it. So you're sitting there, you know, trying to get to it, and you can't sit there and scratch it. All you can kind of do is kind of poke it like this.
At the heart of an actor is, you know, the heart of a child who's playing, and you know, here we are dressing up, and hey, Mike, you're a gypsy, and you know, hey, Burke, you're, you know, 310 pounds.
Winning to winning. May it ever be so sweet. Here, here.
Greg Cannom doing the makeup was just really exciting for me to be a part of. There's a reason this man has 2 Academy Awards to date.
I can tell you weight from right here. 159, right? And next week, gonna be 143. And the week after that, ooh, we don't like to think about that, do we, mister?
Well, you're working with Michael Constantine, who's a great actor. From the ground up, you empathize with him because his butt has been in that chair just as long as you have. In terms of the actual acting, you know, it helps. Now, you know, he's not Michael Constantine, the outgoing, you know, gregarious guy. He's Tadzik, you know, the man with the whammy.
Sir? In
the scene where he actually bestows the curse on me, this man's eyes are like dancing like this, and I was just, it's tremendous. I mean, you know, the makeup helps so much in terms of my being taken aback by it.
In the script for the Gypsy, the makeup, it talks about him getting a very cancerous nose and everything, and I'd asked them to make sure when you hire the Gypsy, you can get somebody with a small nose so we can really elaborate on doing a really disgusting thing. And they got Michael Constantine, who has a very prominent nose, which was fine because I found a way to work with his nose that worked very well.
The truth is, one of the biggest pleasures of this kind of thing is looking forward to the day when it is all over and realizing that now you will have this strange thing on film and be able to look back at it any time and say, geez, didn't I look weird in that? And it's like a really strange memento you get to keep.
Get out or I make it worse. I make it so much worse you think I bless you the first time.
With Michael, we did a very extensive makeup on him. The Tadzu makeup, basically what we did was we put on we call a wrap piece, which was an old age piece with a lot of wrinkles that fit around his neck and onto the sides of his face. And then did very heavy old age stipple on him to wrinkle his skin up into the prosthetic piece. On Michael, he has very black hair, so trying to cover his eyebrows up was very difficult. I used many shades of hair whiteners and that to get his eyes eyebrows as white as I could to match the wig. We put a very long wig on him, and then just all kinds of really heavy blotchy makeup, and use this really nicotine brown stain on his skin and real heavy age spots. Just, you know, went to town with him.
Wonderful. Disgusting. We're in business. Muchas gracias.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. With the curse inside to somebody else.
The pie sequence at the end was, they wanted really gross. It had to be a really disgusting effect. They had to first, you know, bring Robert's hand in, and he digs the knife into the wound to open it back up, and it bleeds. And we did it in one take. And it's too bad they didn't keep it in, because they cut it so it looks like a cut, you know, but it was a fake hand, and when he dug it in, it was just so painful, and the blood pouring out and just digging it in the right, you see the blade go way down the palm.
This is the mechanical hand that's being used in the scene with the articulating pie. And what this is a foam skin over an articulated understructure. It has a hollow void in the palm, which is filled with blood using this tube. We have it tied to a syringe. And of course, well, let me see, I probably push the screwdriver through the void. Okay. And then underneath this foam skin, we have the mechanism, which you can see here. It's a series of pulleys, and they are all tied to the fingers, basically one big loop.
Okay.
They didn't know if they wanted to do the pie as an optical effect or a mechanical effect, so we finally did a mechanical effect.
Well, this is the mechanical pie for the closing sequence, a big finale where it comes to life. And this is, actually we have two ways to make the thing move. We have bladders on the surface that are going to be tied into a manifold that will actually be playing like a keyboard, and that'll undulate the surface of the pie. We have one on each end that gives it a pulling motion this way, and then we have 3 on each side. So we have 6 total this way, and one, well, total of 8 servos all the way around. So if I turn it on here, we can get it to actually, let's see, we can give it a kissing action. Let's see, there we go. Get it to actually open up.
I don't usually like doing blood effects in movies when you're sticking a knife in somebody or that. I don't think it's necessary. When you're doing a good horror film, I can't have enough blood shooting everywhere and going into it. You know, as long as you're having fun with it and people know it's supposed to be fun, then it's okay.
Did you try it? Yep. You tried it.
When I grew up, I loved horror films. I loved watching, Outer Limits and The Time Machine with the Morlocks. Those are the films that got me started. When I start a film and start creating the creatures or makeups, I always think of what I would like to see. What would I like to see if somebody else did it on film? What would scare me? What would be interesting to me? So that's why I've tried to do unique designs on films, because I really sit back and try to think what would scare me. I always go with my instincts first, and then I'll always change them if they don't like them. And usually it works out that I'm right, because I think I know what the audience wants to see. The funny thing about working on a film is you put so much work into it, you put so much of your time, sometimes a year of your life into a film, and it can be very difficult and tedious and problems and everything, but when you finally get to see it on the big screen and it's there for history and it turns out good and you're real happy with it and it works as a film and your makeup works in the film, it's just so exciting and gratifying, that it makes everything worthwhile what you went through on the film.